Ladies and gentlemen, I'm switching it up. Last time we did the three most overrated teams of 2021. This time it's the three most underrated teams of 2021. That'll shock the world, just my view. Let's kick it off with number 3. It is Virginia Tech. Guys, Virginia Tech has a sneaky, very manageable schedule. Number 1, the ACC is terrible. We all know that. But number 2, you take a look at their two big games early in the season. They're both at home, and they're both, I view, winnable. You've got North Carolina week 1. A Friday game at 6 o'clock on ESPN. That's a big game. North Carolina loses a lot of talent. They return Sam Howell. I understand that. I love Sam Howell personally. But that's a winnable game. You got the crowd into it. It's a 6 o'clock. It's your opening game. Middle Tennessee, obviously easy win. At Virginia Tech, that's manageable. Versus Richmond, should be an easy win. And then you get Notre Dame at home, probably in a night game. Now, depending on how Virginia Tech's season is going, if they're playing poorly, I'm guessing that'll be probably a 3:30 game. But if Virginia Tech knocks off North Carolina week 1 and is undefeated going into that Notre Dame game, that's going to be a night game. My prediction on this is I think they win at least one of those games versus North Carolina or Notre Dame, both of them being at home, both of them likely at night. So you're going to get the crowd. The crowd's going to help you. After that, they got a run of very easy games versus Pittsburgh, although I like Pitt this year. Pitt's another sleeper team. I love Pitt. They're a phenomenal program. And then versus Syracuse, very winnable game. At Georgia Tech, manageable. At Boston College, winnable, although Boston College is on the way up. They've got a good young quarterback. They've got Jeff Hafley, good coach. We'll see. Versus Duke, very winnable. At Miami, I had Miami as an honorable mention as one of the most overrated teams in college football. Yeah, that's a very winnable game. It is on the road. But again, not really a great home field advantage for Miami. They're playing in the NFL stadium. And then they close out at Virginia, another very winnable game. Very manageable schedule here. It's going to be those first two early home games, both, night games. You get the crowd into it. We know Virginia Tech enter Sandman. That's why very sneaky team here. Virginia Tech, sneaky team in a very, very bad Power 5 conference, the ACC. Horrific conference. Terrible conference. Terrible. North Carolina's down. Miami's down. Obviously, we know Clemson's really good, but other than that, they can take advantage of this schedule. They can surprise some people, especially early on. They're able to beat North Carolina. You go into that game against Notre Dame at home, undefeated. That could be huge. Could be a night game as well. Moving on to the number 2 team, it is Utah. Ladies and gentlemen, Utah returns 19 starters. We obviously understand what happened to Ty Jordan. Terrible situation. Really unfortunate. You never like seeing stuff like that. He was a really promising young player. That's terrible. But they did get a transfer veteran quarterback from Baylor. You guys remember Charlie Brewer. Huge experience. You can manage the Pac-12. He's not a great quarterback, but it's a manageable thing. I love Kyle Whittingham, the head coach of Utah. Really solid. I just love teams like this. I just love teams like Utah. I love teams like Pitt. It's just such a stable team. So you take a look at their schedule. Weber State week 1, Pac-12 Network. Yeah, so obviously very well. They do kind of have a sneaky hard non-conference. You've got this BYU team without Zach Wilson, but they're still a good team. That'll be a tough game for them on the road. And then they're on the road again in another non-conference game at San Diego State. That one should be pretty easy, though. The Aztecs aren't too good. You get into their regular Pac-12 schedule versus Washington State. That should be an easy one. At USC, that's a huge game. Versus Arizona State and Jane Daniels, that should be a good one. Oregon State should be an easy win. UCLA, we'll have to see how they are. At Stanford, they've been down. Arizona's been down. Versus Oregon's a big one. And then versus Colorado is a very easy game. So a manageable schedule. Get through the non-conference 3-0, or even maybe you lose to BYU, but I really think this Utah team, the experience, the 19 returning starters, we saw 2 years ago, they were in the playoff talk. If they're able to beat USC on the road, I think they'll be in the playoff talk at the end of the season. I don't know if they'll make it. It's very tough for a team from the Pac-12 that doesn't go undefeated to make the playoffs, but they get Oregon at home, and it's just that USC game That's going to be the tough one. If they're able to get by that, I see them doing very well in the Pac-12. They are a complete dark horse, veteran-laden team. They got that key transfer portal quarterback, Charlie Brewer. Not great, but he's manageable. He's serviceable from Baylor. Played decent at Baylor, and he's a veteran. He brings a lot of experience. We'll have to see what happens with Utah. They are my number 2 team when it comes to most underrated teams. And on to number 1, ladies and gentlemen. This is a team with a very hard schedule, but I just trust them to bounce back and have a great season after the crazy COVID year. It is Penn State. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm an Ohio State fan, and every year the toughest game on our schedule, at least I think personally, it is Penn State. I have so much respect for their program. James Franklin, phenomenal coach. I'm just going to chalk up last year to it being a crazy COVID pandemic season. You know, it was terrible. They start off 0-5. They finish on a 4-game winning streak. But I really have faith in their program that they're going to have a good year and be a top 15 team all year. You take a look at their schedule. It's not easy. At Wisconsin week 1, that would be a huge, I see a close, low-scoring win for Penn State week 1. Ball State, people are kind of overrating Ball State. They're actually not the best team in the MAC. That is Toledo. I think they'll easily beat Ball State. Versus Auburn, I don't think Auburn's going to be very good. Bo Nix is a veteran. You know, he's got that veteran presence. We'll have to see. But I see them beating Auburn at home. That'll be their whiteout game. Villanova, not even a group of 5 team. Versus Indiana, they're going to win that game. I think Indiana's a fraud. I've said it before. At Iowa, very tough game. A tough, close game. That's not going to be an easy one. Versus Illinois, that'll give them a little bit of a break. We know the Illini kind of going through a rebuilding phase right now. At Ohio State, obviously very tough. At Maryland, tough but winnable. Versus Michigan, very winnable. Versus Rutgers, very winnable. At Michigan State, the last 3 games there are all very winnable. Even the last 4 if you include Maryland. But when it comes to Penn State, veteran quarterback Sean Clifford, a lot of talent on that team. They always recruit well. James Franklin, have a lot of faith in him. Really good receivers, underrated receivers, Parker Washington. And they do lose Micah Parsons on the defense, although they didn't even have him last year due to him sitting out for the COVID thing, whatever, just didn't want to play. He wanted to protect his draft stock. Totally understand it. He goes pick 12. Micah Parsons was a beast. He really was a beast. But when it comes to my top 3 dark horse teams, guys, also, you want to know an honorable mention? I'm going to throw this one in there. How about Pitt? Yeah, Pitt's an honorable mention. Pitt's an interesting team. They're a dark horse team there. ACC, guys. The ACC, what a terrible conference. My goodness. It's horrifically bad. But when it comes to my top 3 most, underrated teams, people aren't talking about them. Virginia Tech. You could see Virginia Tech as a top 15 team in the nation mid-season very easily, just based off of their schedule. Number 2, it is going to be Utah. Veteran, returning, we know that. We got the transfer quarterback, Charlie Brewer. And then Penn State, after the crazy bad last year, kind of an aberration due to the pandemic, I have them getting back on track, and James Franklin getting that program back on track to a perennial top 15 team. They may have 2 or 3 losses, but it's a very tough schedule, and I think they'll always be inside the top 20 or top 15 this year, especially if they get that first win at Wisconsin. They're going to shoot up the rankings. And then people are making big about that. Ball State, people think Ball State is the best team in the MAC. It's Toledo. I know Ball State won it last year. Toledo is better this year. People just don't pay attention to that stuff. They're like, oh, Ball State, it's going to be such a tough game. No. Auburn, really? Jesus Christ. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I am, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.